everybody. Welcome back to another edition of the Fatboyz Dynasty Podcast presented by the Fantasy Holics Podcast Network. I'm Bo. That is Brant. Oh, wait. I'm Bo. That is Brant. Had to show off my gift my buddy got me from his vacation there. Brant coming at everybody with some Underdog specials this week. Getting close to the NFL season. I think we're like 20-some days out from not necessarily meaningful football, but 20-some days out from football in general. I'm feeling pretty excited. I know draft season's right around the corner. We just concluded a draft that's being posted daily on the Fantasy Holics post. Neither of our teams have come up yet, but when they do, we'll talk about those in a different episode. But we're getting close, so we thought what better way to kick off the season and get ready than by talking some over-unders. Or some
absolutely.
Higher lowers, rather.
Yeah, higher lowers. Absolutely. The Underdog is starting to put theirs out. FanDuel's getting theirs out now that the schedule is out and everything's set in stone. You're seeing some cuts. You're seeing some, pickups, trades, stuff like that. And not a whole lot of big things have come out yet. But, you got your quarterback set. The depth charts are starting to form at the top. So the higher and lowers are starting to come out. And this is a great time to, get in early, because the more camp hype that comes or other things, the numbers will change a little bit. So it's always better to get in there early if you're going to put in a nice little season long one. I know I put in about one of them because I don't have the patience to sit there and wait all year watching one just sit there on my screen. So I do about one, maybe two. And normally that's on that's normally on my Underdog app that I don't look at as much. It's once a week I get on there to set it up.
Yeah, I definitely am a big, advocate of futures. That's one of my favorite ways to sprinkle. Obviously, I can't help myself on a Sunday morning building the perfect parlay on the couch as you're waiting for kickoff that doesn't ever hit. Although this year you and I did have some decent success with our Underdog picks on Sunday mornings. But nonetheless, here's what I want to do, Brant, if you're cool with this, and I know we've already kind of discussed this a little bit. We're going to talk about three of our favorite futures that we picked, whether they're our favorite because we hate the number or it's our favorite because we love the number. And we're going to talk about how a player is going to smash it or, crash it, if you will. But I'm going to come at you afterwards with some others. I'll strike those out if I have to, because I have no idea what your futures are. You have no idea what my futures are. But we'll do some rapid fire ones here at the end of the show. But let's get into the ones that we're a little bit more passionate about. I'll let you get started, whether you want to take us through one of your crashes or your smashes there.
I'm going to take you through one of my smashes, and I think this guy smashes this line. I got Brock Bowers higher than 899.5 receiving yards. He's going to be the primary weapon in a rebuilding offense. We talk about this all the time. Rookie quarterback, best friend. I know Kirk Cousins may start week one, maybe a few more weeks. But eventually we're going to see Mendoza take over that offense. And I think Brock Bowers is going to be one of his primary targets, going to be one of his best weapons. It's always the tight end or running backs. This is the guy that can move all over the formation. The hype is already there. Kubiak's already talking about how outstanding this guy is. One of the best, receivers he's ever coached, if not the best. I think Brock Bowers smashes and goes well higher than 899.5. I honestly see his line getting fluctuated throughout the preseason and prior to the year kicking off. I think you're going to see his line getting closer to 950.
Yeah, definitely should be the premier target there in that offense, because really outside of Brock Bowers, wide receiver wise, there's not honestly a whole lot there. So definitely would be interesting to see who Mendoza picks to be his guy. I'd be shocked if it's anybody other than Mendoza, rather than Bowers. But I will say you tie into one of mine perfectly. So I'll go ahead with one of my smashes. I've got Ashton Jeanty higher than 7.5 rushing touchdowns on the season. Again, I think this is going to be a very bad football team this year. I don't expect a lot of great things from the Vegas Raiders, but what I do expect there to be good things with is the running back room and the tight end room. I think Jeanty has a good season this year. The season everybody wanted him to have last year, I think he has this year. I think this team is going to be more proactive in the red zone, I guess is a good way to say it. I think this team finds the end zone more often. And I think Jeanty solidifies himself as a running back one this year. I think he smashes 7.5 rushing touchdowns.
Yeah, absolutely. You've seen Kubiak likes to run the ball, run, and I think Genty's going to be the guy there. His yards were just. I looked at him, and I wasn't sure because that line is up, but I definitely are not banged up. That line is so questionable, so I definitely do believe in those touchdowns, though. Um, that's going to tie me right into mine as you talk about awful teams. I'm taking A-Chain to go lower than 999 and a half rushing yards. This offense is going to be atrocious. It's going to be ugly to watch. You're adding in a rushing quarterback to go along with it. You're talking about a team that's going to play from behind in almost every single game. That's why I didn't take his total yards, because he probably smashes his total yards over, because he's going to be the best pass catchers, if not the only true pass catcher on that team. I just don't see how you're going to hit 1,000 rushing yards behind that offensive line when you're trailing from the get-go. The defense doesn't even look the greatest. The offense looks atrocious. It looks like they're just setting it up. And then you add in the rushing upside of Malik Willis. I don't see A-Chain hitting 1,000 yards. And honestly, we could talk about this later on in one of our episodes. This is a guy that I don't even know if he meets his ADP, but like I said, we could talk about that later on in an episode with our boom and bust episode later on in this offseason. But A-Chain going lower than 999 and a half yards. I don't see him reaching 1,000 rushing yards.
Okay. So here's a couple quick questions, and I'd like your take on these, if you don't mind, with A-Chain. Not that I'm a huge avid believer in him, but my question is, does it not scare you with his home run ability that he could do that in, like, I don't know, 50 carries, 60 carries?
Yeah, it does. But the issue is I don't think the line's going to open him up for us to see that many home runs. I don't see him breaking as many tackles, because I think he gets dogpiled at the line. It's going to be a lot like what we saw with Genty, where he got hit behind the line almost every single time he touched the ball last year. And I don't think A-Chain's as durable as Genty is, and he's going to be able to break those long runs. How many long runs did we really see Genty get out with a bad offensive line last year? And I think it's going to be similar with A-Chain.
Okay, so my second question is, what would it take for you to trade him to me, as he was your second overall pick in our startup draft that we just finished last week?
I'm looking at the future here, bud. I'm looking at the future. I mean, obviously, my first overall pick might not even play till week 8. So I was already looking at the future. I was on vacation when I made that pick, and I hadn't even seen any of the reports of neighbors. So I was like, well, as soon as I made that pick, I started looking, and I go, well, I guess it's time for me to go ahead and start looking for the future.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. All right. I'm going to go with one of my favorite players this year. This is a guy that I think when we get into the My Guy episodes, that, about a month from now or so, that I will probably talk about ad nauseum. I've probably already done so. Brant's probably tired of hearing me talk about this guy. This is my second overall pick, or my third overall pick from our startup draft. I've got Luther Burden higher than 849 and a half receiving yards. Listen, he's going to be a yak king. He's going to be one of those guys that he gets 7, 8, receptions a game, maybe 6. And you're going to be talking about, 6 receptions, 75 yards receiving, and a touchdown one week. The next week, it'll be 5 receptions, 115 yards receiving, and a touchdown. He's just going to be a guy that gets the ball probably in short screens, slants, things of that nature, work on the inside of the field for Caleb Williams. And I think this is one that he smashes rather quickly. I'm going to be honest, it wouldn't shock me at all if he was a top 15, 20-ish wide receiver on the season. I would bet his line is actually, in my opinion, if I were to actually, this is one I will be putting money on, Brant. But if I was to be honest with you, I don't think I'd be scared away from it if it was set at 999 and a half yards. I just think when you talk about a Ben Johnson offense, Caleb Williams going into his third year in the league, just getting better and better every season, this is one of those that I just don't know as though I could get enough at where the line is currently set. That feels really nice to me.
Yeah, I think this is an offense that's going to take a huge step forward this year. I don't think we're just going to see fourth quarter Caleb Williams. I think this is going to be a team that puts it all together, and I think you're going to be talking of Burden having games of over 100, 110 yards quite a few times this year. I do believe that is a very good line for him. I do think 1,000 I know DJ Moore's out the door, but we saw Loveland take such a big step forward as well, and he should get Rome back healthy. They have all the weapons, so I do think 1,000 would scare me off, but 849 is definitely not scary.
What if I told you? What if I told you it wouldn't surprise me between Loveland, Rome, and Burden for there to be some way, shape, or form for those three to account for 3,000 yards receiving?
It wouldn't shock me. I would like to see Caleb Williams higher, lower line. Wouldn't shock me at all to see him well almost to 4,000 as well. So that wouldn't shock me.
Well, I can pull it up right now because I just happen to already be on the quarterbacks.
Okay.
So Caleb Williams is at 3,724 and a half.
So you're talking 700 yards have to go to someone else. Yeah, I definitely could see that happening. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, it wouldn't shock me. It would be scary to see how it turns out, but yeah, that definitely is an offense that easily could produce three receivers averaging 1,000 yards. All right, so my next one is another lower, and it's Jadarian Price. I got him lower than 799 and a half rushing yards. Charbonnet is eventually going to come back. I know he was not going to be 100%. They always say it takes, a year to get back, but Seattle's already proven they're not going to want. I know Kubiak's out the door, but they saw how well it worked splitting the backfield. They did sign Emmanuel Wilson, so they did sign another running back. They still have Wright and a couple other running backs there that can spill a little bit of work. And I just don't think Jadarian Price will be the workhorse that everybody wants him to be right off the rip. I do think next year he will be. Charbonnet is in a contract year, and we've already seen Seattle's not going to pay a running back. So maybe they try to get Charbonnet on a discount if he does come back and not give him as much run. But I think that they're going to be in contention. I think they're still going to be a team that's winning games. And I think it's going to be on the back of switching different running backs and continuing to change the pace. I just think that Seattle saw the way that it was going to go. I really wanted to get Rashid Shaheed's line for receiving yards, but he unfortunately was not on Underdog at that time because I think his is going to be a low hit as he gets involved in the offense. You could see him taking a few rushes away. I just don't see Price hitting 800 yards in the season.
Yeah. I think you're 100% right, Brant. And I think a big reason I'd say I think you're right on this one is because I don't see a Super Bowl champ coming into the season and turning the reins over immediately to a rookie. I think they'll start him slow. I think maybe by weeks 3, 4, and 5, he could be toting the rock a decent amount. But I think shortly after weeks 3, 4, and 5 is when you start seeing Charbonnet come back and integrate it into that offense. So I just don't think you're going to get enough games of Jadarian Price having high volume. And let's be honest, too. It's pretty damn difficult to go for 100 yards rushing in a game. So if you're going to tell me that he's got 3 games as a bell cow type back this year, I'm going to say out of those 3, he only hits 100 yards over probably one time just because of how difficult it is. So, yeah, I think to me that the under smashes on him as well. He's definitely going to go lower than that 800-yard mark.
Okay, absolutely.
All right, I'm going to finish mine with one lower. And you know how I am from Sunday mornings, Brant. It's really hard for me to be a pessimist and take those lowers. I love to smash the higher, if you will. I have Baker Mayfield lower than 3,649 and a half passing yards. I just think Baker is that quarterback that he's had some really, really high highs and some really, really low lows. I think last year down the stretch, he kind of got exposed a little bit. No Mike Evans this year. I do understand that Emeka Egbuka should take a step forward, but it's really Emeka Egbuka, 31-year-old Chris Godwin this year. A huge question mark at the tight end spot. And then the running game, which I think is going to be the focal point of this team. I do think as a whole, Tampa Bay takes a step back. It wouldn't surprise me at all. Yes, I know we can see the Atlanta Falcons flag back here, somewhat homerism. It wouldn't surprise me at all to see Tampa end up being the worst team in the division with Carolina, New Orleans, and Atlanta somehow battling it out for that, 9-8 record, representing the NFC South. So I think that's kind of where things stand for me. I just think that Baker's going to have a year where he's just not going to be as efficient. Not saying his career's over, not saying he won't bounce back, not saying he won't even have some really good weeks. I just think that number is high. for a team that looks to move on from its veteran, bona fide number one wide receiving target in Mike Evans. I think Baker goes well below the 3,600 mark.
Okay, yeah, I'm absolutely on board with that because you're not even sure who the third receiver will be with McMillan and a few other guys there. I definitely don't see that team. I see them might have some struggles on the offensive end this year. So, yeah, I definitely could get on board with that one.
Okay, Brant. I told you I was going to try to catch you off guard a little bit here. I have some of the league's premier rookies that I would like to talk about. Obviously, one of which you did bring up already with the Jadarian Price line, so I won't bring him up when we get to it. But I'm just going to walk through the the four positions here: the quarterback room, running back room, wide receiver room, tight end room. We'll talk about some of the premier rookies from this year's class, and you tell me whether you think, as rookies, these players overperform their current expectations or if they fall short of those. So we'll start with Mendoza. They don't have a passing yards number out for him just yet. I think that's something that will probably get a little closer to the season when they decide whether or not he's going to be the full-time starter. They do, however, have his passing touchdown line out, and they have it set really, really low here, which is kind of disappointing, or almost even disrespectful in my mind for the number one overall pick in this year's draft. 12.5 passing touchdowns for Francisco Mendoza. What do you think there?
12.5 passing touchdowns. Honestly, I'm going to go with the higher on that just because I think they're going to be so far behind this year. And I think Bowers will be, a monster in the red zone. I think Genty will be a good addition. So I actually think I'm going to go higher because I think he's going to get some garbage time touchdowns maybe at the beginning of the year. But I think I'm going to take the higher.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think I like the higher as well. We've seen some really cool, some quarterbacks that have come out as rookies that really aren't that good that have hit that number. So I think if he, gets on the field at a relatively early point in the season, I think this is something he eclipses, relatively easy, honestly. So I'm in agreement with you on that one. So obviously we already talked about Jadarian Price. You've got him going lower. How about the other premier running back in this class, Jeremiah Love, at 899.5 rushing yards?
Oh, man, I hate his situation. They signed Algier. They still have Connor. I think I actually go lower.
Okay. All right. I think he does play early and often, but I think this team is going to be so woefully bad that I just don't think he gets to that number. I think he's going to have a chance. I think his touchdown line might be a better one that I'd rather take, but I think I'm going to agree with you on the under. I think he gets close. I just don't think he goes over that 900-yard mark. So I think we're in step there. All right, wide receiving room, starting with Carnell Tate, 799.5 receiving yards. Higher or lower on Carnell Tate?
I'm going higher on this one. I like what the Titans are trying to do. I like how the offense is starting to build up. So I think I'm going to go higher. I still think that they're going to be playing from behind. I think he's going to get a lot of volume. So I'm actually going to go higher on him.
I'm going to go lower on Carnell Tate, Brant. They've got Wan'Dale Robinson that they made a priority to bring it in. Calvin Ridley's still in town. Wan'Dale Robinson does reunite with his former head coach, now offensive coordinator, and Brian Dable. I just think that Carnell Tate's probably going to get off to a slow start. Let's not forget Alec Iamaner, one of your favorite wide receivers in last year's class, was there and kind of came on down the stretch. Shamir DK came on down the stretch a little bit. There's some other guys in that pecking order. I think it'd be silly of me not to say that I expect Carnell Tate to be on the field in 3 wide receiver sets. But it wouldn't shock me at all for him not to be the guy early in the season until he gets that chemistry established. I just, to me, I'm nervous about this line a little bit, just a little bit.
Okay.
Jordan Tyson also at 799.5 receiving yards. How does he do with Chris Olave opposite of him and Tyler Shuck going into year 2?
I'm going to take the lower. I think Shuck found a way last year to solidify himself as a starter, and it was spreading the ball out. I know you got Olave, you got why you just said his name. Why am I drawing a blank?
Jordan Tyson.
You got Olave. I think he's going to spread the ball out quite a bit. You got ETN and Kamara, who they just restructured the contract in order to keep him there. So I'm actually going to take the lower on that one.
Yeah, another fellow rookie that I think a lot of people are really starting to like too, and Oscar Delp, and that tight end room as well that could come on and be a bona fide tight end as well. So yeah, to me again, I think Jordan Tyson's lower comes because I think it's going to be feast or famine with this wide receiver room. I think if Chris Olave is healthy and on the field, he's the number one guy. If he misses time, which we all know he's prone to do, I think Tyson slots into that. But Tyson's got to be on the field. So, and the hamstring injury we talked about a little bit when we were doing, wide receiver scouting, it's still lingering. So, if that's not completely healthy come, training camp and preseason, maybe it takes him and Tyler Shook a little while to get on the same page. So we shall see. I think I agree with the lower on that one. Okay. Malachi Lemon at 649.5 receiving yards.
What's his counterpart at?
Well, let us take a little look-see here. I'm sure it's basically 1,100 for Devonta Smith.
And I really think Hurts starts to pass it a little more this year. I still think I'd take the under or the lower there.
And Jalen Hurts is only at 3,200 yards. So they're also not real confident in the numbers. You said you take the lower on Malachi Lemon?
Yeah, I think I'd take the lower.
I'm going to go higher on Malachi Lemon. Again, A.J. Brown out the door in New England. He slots in to be the number 2 now. I still think Devonta Smith has a great year. I still think Dallas Goedert's involved. Saquon Barkley's involved. But 649 feels low for a guy who's going to be on the field a decent amount and a guy that they drafted early in this draft. A guy that they expect to come in and be a big part in this team that I would assume, I'm not a Philly fan, but so strike me down if there's any of you here, but I would assume those guys still view themselves in a title contending window. So I think they're going to be putting players on the field that they're expecting to get to that point with, right? So I think I'm going to go higher with Malachi Lemon. I think he's going to be a big part of this offense.
Okay. All right.
KC Concepcion at 624.5.
Now I'm taking the higher on him. I think he comes out. I think he is going to be, I like what Cleveland's putting together there with the receiving core, but I think that he turns himself into a yak specialist with the short slants and everything. And I think you're talking about this guy with over 100 receiving yards, probably more often than you would be expecting. So I'm going to take the higher on KC Concepcion.
Yeah, I'm going to take the lower, and it's got nothing to do with KC Concepcion. It's got everything to do with Denzel Boston, Jerry Jeudy, Harold Fannin, Dylan Sampson, and then even more so to do with who the hell's under center. Is it Deshaun Watson, who, beginning of the offseason here, it was like, yep, Watson's the guy this year. He's going to be the one. And then the very minimal amount of stuff we've seen so far is coming out is that Shedeur Sanders is closer to potentially being the guy because of how bad Deshaun Watson's been, less to do with what Shedeur has done, right? So, just how crowded it is with that middling tier, not, high-end talent, but middling outside of Harold Fannin. I think Harold Fannin's a fantastic tight end. Excuse me. I just don't think you're going to be able to predict who's the guy week in and week out outside of Harold Fannin in this pass catching game. And I don't think we're going to be able to predict and lock down that quarterback situation until, several weeks from this point, at least, Brant. And I will say, if it's Shedeur, who I'm one of the very few that are doing this. I root for Shedeur. I want to see him succeed. Maybe I feel bad for the kid because of how much, nepotism jokes are made about him with his dad and everything else. But I just don't know if I trust any wide receiver not named Harold Fannin in that offense.
Okay. All
right. Last one for you, which is going to take us on. Last wide receiver for you, which is going to take us on a little bit of a jet streak here. Omar Cooper at 524.5 receiving yards.
Geno Smith still throwing the ball. I'm taking the lower. That's my only reason. I think Garrett Wilson has a good year. It's probably one of the better quarterbacks he's had. But I wasn't a firm believer in Cooper coming out. So I'm actually going to take the lower.
Okay. All right. And then last but not least, we'll go to the tight end position. They do only have one rookie projected at this point. And that's Kenyon Sadiq, also with the Jets. They have him at 474 receiving yards and a half. Excuse me.
I think I'm going to take the higher on him. I know Geno's throwing the ball. We saw it in Seattle. He does like the tight ends a little bit more. We saw it there in Vegas last year when he wasn't throwing it to the other team. So I think Sadiq's gonna have a good little start, and I think it'll be fairly easy for him to reach 500 receiving yards this year.
Okay, so will you double down and say that you think Kenyon Sadiq is the tight end one of the rookie class?
Yes, I will.
Okay. Obviously, Underdog does as well since they only have him listed, but.
Right.
There you go. Real quick, throw this on there from Mr. Patrick, another member of the Fantasy Holics team. Says, miss them boys. Glad to be back, and I think we're going to make it a point to be back more regularly. We've had some scheduling deals. I was sicker than a dog last Wednesday. Brant was just easing himself back in from vacation, so it just didn't line up, but I think we're both ready, getting into the nitty-gritty. Ready to be here. Definitely going to be live with you guys every Sunday morning as the season rolls around.
Yeah, absolutely. Miss doing this with you. Miss being here live. Definitely going to make it a point to try to get it out there every single week and get back to our regularly scheduled program. As like you said, vacations are winding down. We're back getting in. Sports scheduling starting to wind down, kind of for me. As my daughter just started school softball right after rec softball ended. But yeah, we're starting to slow down. I don't have to coach that, so I just have to show up to the games at least.
the slowdown before the ramp up.
Yeah.
Yep. So, but anyway, it's definitely good to be back. Definitely had to give a shout out to Underdog. Underdog's been a great friend of the program and the whole Fantasy Holics team. Definitely go check Underdog out if you haven't done so. Use the promo code Holics. Jump on there, get some free scratch for this upcoming season. Maybe go take a gander and just throw a bunch of free money on all the futures. That way you don't have to be like Brant and worry about them. It's free.
I just put all 6 of ours in. They had a 30% profit boost for futures. So I put all 6 of ours down. I just put a little change on it. And I mean, $3 is going to pay out well over 100 and some. So let's hope for this good season here.
Absolutely. Good to be back, Brant. Can't wait to do it again next week.
Yeah, absolutely. And as always, stay hungry.
Stay fat, my friends.